Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a check of the top headlines this hour. The US and India release an interim trade framework aimed at lowering tariffs and deepening economic ties. Both sides say more negotiations are needed to finalize a broader trade agreement. Iran's foreign minister says US nuclear talks mediated by Oman are off to a good start and will continue. Tehran insists it will discuss only its nuclear program and calls for talks without threats or pressure. Thousands gather in Islamabad to bury the 31 killed in a suicide bombing at a Shiite mosque. Islamic State claims the attack as residents fear further violence. US Navy Secretary John Phelan listed as passenger on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane in 2006. Phelan declined to comment through a Navy spokesperson. US President Donald Trump refuses to apologize for racist video on Obama's after removing a racist video. He said, "I didn't make a mistake." A man is charged with threatening to kill US Vice President J.D. Vance during a visit to Ohio. Prosecutors say the charges stem from incidents in January. Trump signs an order warning of new U.S. tariffs on countries that continue to trade with Iran, citing a possible 25% rate. The move comes as U.S.-Iran talks continue in Oman, with Trump restating opposition to Iran nuclear weapons. A U.S. appeals court upholds Trump's policy of mandatory detention for migrants without bond. The 2-1 ruling marks the first appellate backing despite widespread lower court opposition. Investigators examine a newly surfaced message in the search for the missing mother of U.S. journalist Savannah Guthrie. Authorities say the message is being checked for authenticity as the search enters a 6th day. All right, viewers, on to now news from Iran, where Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says that Tehran's missile program is never negotiable during talks with the United States. He added that both sides agreed to hold the next round of talks soon. Araghchi insisted that nuclear enrichment is Iran's inalienable right, but said Tehran is ready to reach a reassuring deal with Washington. He warned that Iran would target US bases in the region if attacked. Araghchi also revealed that the Muscat talks included a handshake with the US delegation, despite the negotiations being indirect. All right, viewers, those are the latest details in connection to Iran's talks with the United States. Its a foreign minister has said that the missile program is not negotiable, even as the country has acceded to negotiations on its nuclear program, but missile program is not negotiable is a clear message that has come out from Iran. Araghchi, the foreign minister, also insisted that nuclear enrichment is Iran's inalienable right, but said Tehran is ready to reach a reassuring deal with Washington. Remember, viewers, talks of US and Iran were held on Friday, and negotiations on its nuclear program were the key agenda. Let's now welcome Matty Zweig, who's a geopolitical expert from Tel Aviv, in this conversation. Matty, thanks for joining us. All right, Matty, and now Tehran has sent a clear message once again that even though it is ready for nuclear negotiations, missile negotiations is something that it is not willing to do. It will go on with its missile program. What does this really mean for the Middle East region if Iran really builds on a huge missile arsenal?
Well, Iran is all the time trying to develop their big weapons, like all their plan of precise missiles, and also, of course, the nuclear capabilities in order to threaten all the area and try to have a bigger influence in all the area and continue with their supremacist point of view that the Shiite clerics thinks that they must impose themselves in all the Middle East, even beyond. So this has been the source of all the problems in all the years. In the 12 days war with Israel, Israel, and finally with a little help of the United States, also have showed them that they cannot continue in this path. They have to stop their nuclear capabilities. They have to stop their development of precise missiles. And now they can talk about sovereignty or the natural right to build these things, all what they want, but they are not going to get it. If they are not going to agree to stop developing the precise missiles and their nuclear capabilities, I'm talking about capabilities that they are not for peace purpose, but even for attacking with atomic bombs. So of course, nobody's going to stop until they will. And adding to this, the carnage and the terrible repression and the dozens of thousands of dead that they have been inflicting on their own population. So altogether, it means that they are going to agree in a big way, or they are going to be maybe destroyed by the U.S. capabilities in the near future.
Matty, how do you also view the fact that U.S. moved to impose sanctions on Iran right after the Oman talks?
Because they must do this. I mean, they are betraying all their agreements in the past. And the sanctions is a way of making them consider again what are their positions. I mean, in the past, all the time, all the big superpowers and also United States and even Israel suppose that they are, crazy, so-called, but rational in the moment that something real is happening, like threatening with sanctions, that's really cutting their possibilities of developing weapons or selling weapons or having more trade with China that they try to circumvent their sanctions. But in this moment, if they are not going to do more sanctions, they are not going to recapacitate. I mean, they're going to continue because it's a regime with no exit. It's a little group of extremist clerics that they have been training hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people on how to repress the whole nation that is composed by many also ethnic minorities and people that think differently from their extremist point of view. There are more than 70 or 80 millions. So in this moment, this regime is no exit. They are with their spine on the wall, and they are trying to be tough, but if they are not going to change their way, the outcomes are not going to be good for anyone, also to the stability of the Middle East. They are the contrary of the stability of the Middle East. They have always spread terrorism and destabilization of the Middle East and other places in the world through terrorism. So there is no talking about leaving them in place because they can destabilize the Middle East. It's an oxymoron.
Sure. All right, Matty, thanks for your comments. They are requested to stay on. Moving on now to news from Ukraine. President Zelensky has revealed that the United States wants Ukraine and Russia to end the war by June and has offered to host talks between the two sides next week, likely in Miami. Zelensky has also made it clear that Ukraine will not accept any deals about its sovereignty being made between the US and Russia without Kyiv's involvement. The Ukrainian president updated that the recent talks in Abu Dhabi covered several key issues, including technical monitoring of the ceasefire and proposals for a free economic zone in Donbass. Zelensky says prisoners of war swaps with Russia will continue. He also confirmed that discussions on the fate of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant are still unresolved and that any bilateral agreements between Russia and the United States cannot violate the Ukrainian constitution. Ukraine says it is ready to reciprocate if Russia agrees to the proposals. All right, request Matty to join us back in the discussion here. Matty, the question of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is crucial, and Zelensky has made it clear that no progress, at least, has been made on that regard.
Well, we were talking about this in an interview yesterday, that they are talking now about ceasefire or a kind of peace agreement that includes even areas that they were conquered in the last 4 years by Russia, but also areas that they didn't conquer until now. So everyone waits what is his possibilities on the ground if they continue the war. And that's what is happening. Russia must think now to complete the completely conquer of all the east of Ukraine, including all the Donetsk and Donbass, all the Lugansk and everything. They need also to receive from Ukraine all the industrial area of Donbass, which is very rich. This is also an area that they didn't conquer until now, and estimation thinks that they will take a year and a half to conquer if the war continues, including all the drainage of economical drainage, human lives of soldiers, etc. And from the other side, they want also to keep places that they are not naturally and historically part of what is traditionally areas of connected to Russia, like Kherson area or Zaporozhye area. And they want them because of their own thinkings about what can be in the future, like they would be positioned very good in an area that in a position of conflict, they can start a much better war in the future too. So of course the Ukrainians doesn't want that. They want them to go back to the lines of Donetsk and Lugansk as only to the places that they already conquered, and to leave these places back to their owners and from 1991, which is the Republic of Ukraine. And about Zaporozhye area is very interesting because it's like Russia is going to defend all an area that can be a potential danger of an atomic bomb or nuclear problems with the Zaporozhye engine. And this is also can be discussed. It can be either Russian or Ukrainian or even an international area that is under supervision of international powers, that everything is okay. But then they will have to say who this belong, if to Ukraine or to Russia. So I suppose they are talking about all these things in this moment. The exchange of posts, the exchange of prisoners of war from both sides are going to continue now that they are in a relative calm. And when I say relative, it means that while they are talking, Russians are still bombing Kiev and not especially military place, and people are running to the shelters. So this is the way that Russia do things. This is the thinkings, I think, from the Ukrainian side. And let's see what happens in the next week.
And Matty, what does it really mean if Trump says that he wants the war to end in June? Trump has really been wanting the war to end since 2022. It's 4 years to that. Why is Zelensky really saying that Trump now wants the war to end by June? Will that really be a possibility?
Well, all these talkings about that I want war and I want peace is a little bit useless. I mean, the only real thing is what they're really doing on the ground. In the ground, war continues. What changed is that really Trump is involved and trying to put an end on this. I'm sorry to say, maybe not for the purpose of peace, but for the purpose of having a calm area that can be part of his vision of commerce in the world. And also because from the Ukrainian area already signed with him that he's going to exploit all the rare earths that is from the Ukrainian side. Trump even went further and asked Putin to let American companies to explore and exploit the rare earths from the Russian side. But of course, this is not going to be. I mean, not in the way Trump wants anyway. So it's a big bunch of, a big quantity of interest also for the Americans. But of course, it's part of the vision of Trump that let's make commerce wars and not real wars with dead people.
All right, Matty, once again, stay on with us. There's some more information now coming in. Viewers, Kyiv residents now have been seeking shelter underground after air raid sirens sent people rushing into metro stations across the city. Russia launched another wave of drones and missiles Saturday, targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure and forcing families to seek shelter on platforms and stairwells. Among those waiting was a nurse who said people in Europe and the United States need to better understand daily life under attack if they hope to speak effectively to Moscow in any future peace talks. She said even experiencing power cuts and freezing temperatures could offer a glimpse into how Ukrainians survive. President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia fired more than 400 drones and dozens of missiles, adding that Moscow continues to use winter and the cold as a weapon against the civilians. Let's listen in.
До них дойде оце, хоч что-нибудь, хоть какая-то малость, вот даже пусть там с електроенергією у них не буде, коли не будуть сидіти в холоді, може до них тоді дойде. Як ми тут виживаємо? От. Мені кажеться так. Не надо їх бомбити, не треба. Не треба шахідів, не треба бомб. Вот тут таке малейше. Вот електроенергія. Саме головне для них – газ, електроенергія. Бо тоді, може, вони... Треба зрозуміти.
All right, let's invite Matty back in the discussion here. Matty, what is really Russia intending to do at this critical juncture in freezing temperatures, trying to strike the energy infrastructure and power grids in Ukraine, really trying to cripple down the country when it already has some backing from European Union and the United States? How effective can Russia's plan at this point in time be?
Well, after that, the first and second year of the war showed that the Ukrainians stand firm on their legs, and they were capable of making the Russians go back to some lines in the east and in the southeast. Then decided, I think, from the Russian side, that the only way to do a breakthrough in this stalemate in the war is to, sorry for being so cruel, but I must say it, to make the people suffer. I mean, if they are going to going to strike not only military targets, but also in civilian targets and infrastructure, especially about electricity and gas, etc., in every place, the people is going to suffer so much and ask and demand the central government of Zelensky to go and to stop at any way the war with, with all the demands from the Russian side. So far, this strategy, I think, is starting to give the fruits because like 6 months ago, Zelensky started to say that they understand that some territories are not going to stay part of Ukraine in a future ceasefire or peace agreement. And the maximum he tried to say that because we don't really agree with this situation, this place is going to be temporary under Russian hands, and they're going to be due to a future referendum if the population there want to stay in under Russian control. So it's a way of saying, I understand that I'm going to lose a part of Ukraine, and let's move forward from this point. But the Russians try to go further and continue attacking and make them not to forget that this is their way for not changing the rules at this moment.
All right, Matty, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining us in these discussions. And viewers, we're now going to proceed to cover some news from Africa. Now, medical charity group Médecins Sans Frontières has warned that it may soon struggle to provide care in remote areas of South Sudan as medical supplies run low. The organization says that many of its facilities in conflict-affected regions cannot be restocked due to security concerns, putting thousands of vulnerable people at risk. National staff continue to operate these hospitals, but MSF cautions that without regular supply deliveries, essential treatments could soon stop. The MSF group employs around 4,000 local staff who remain the backbone of its operations, ensuring services continue where international teams cannot enter. Let's now listen to what an MSF representative working in South Sudan has said on the ongoing medical supply crisis.
We are operating what is called on remote in the area where we cannot access. But the problem is that we cannot resupply our hospital. So once the stock will be over, if we have no access and if we are not able to provide new supply, medical supply there, then it will be very difficult. So far, we succeeded to cope with what we have. Something like 4,000 national staff in the country, in South Sudan, means we still have people who are MSF, who are under contract and under our responsibility, operating there. So it's not only 5, 6, 10 international staff going to run a project, it's a full team, including South Sudanese running hospital and collaborating with the Ministry of Health to run some facilities. So we still can continue so far. But then it's very difficult to predict how long we will be able to continue our activity.
Meanwhile, South Sudanese authorities say that they are not interfering with humanitarian work and encourage civilians in insecure areas to move to safer locations. Whereas South Sudan's president has also fired 2 aides after an appointment scandal. And remember, this after South Sudan hospital was hit by government airstrikes, which is also what the MSF says. Aid workers are finding it difficult now to supply resources to hospitals. And let me now, in fact, welcome Ayanuga Olugbenga Paul, public affairs analyst in this discussion. He joins us from Lagos in Nigeria. Ayanuga, thanks very much for joining us. Firstly, how bad is the situation there? Hospitals have also been struck in South Sudan, making it difficult for, working groups like MSF to provide aid and supplies.
Yes, I mean, the situation in South Sudan is very dire. Even before this recent strike, you know, MSF, UN aids have already been warning of acute shortage in supply, that they could not be able to meet up the demand needs of the refugee and displaced people in that country if they do not get any support in form of grants and goodwill support from both individuals and governments across the world. And I think it is that their prediction and call that have been persistent for the last 3 months that is now manifesting, because many of their supply storage have been drained to its most minimal level. That, I mean, like about 2 months ago, around early December, both UN aids and some, I think Red Cross were talking about how before they could attend to about 1.5 million people, but they only have a facility to attend to less than 600,000, and that itself is dwindling fast. And now, I mean, we are in February, so you can imagine what would have happened, coupled now with the strikes and blockades by the militant groups that are making the journey more treacherous for some of these aid organizations to reach those who are in dire need of these medical supplies and other humanitarian aids that are not enough in the first place to begin with. So the situation is really very terrible. And if indeed the government of Sudan wants to care about the people, they need to look for a way to have a truce that will open some of this humanitarian corridor and also assist in supplying humanitarian supplies to some of these organizations to get it to the people in need.
Yeah, Ayanuga, are there also any fresh details coming in as far as the missing MSF aid workers were concerned? Aid workers were missing after the airstrikes in the hospitals there.
There is no update yet on the situation with the aid workers that are missing. And you know that these are usually the first responders that would have helped in locating or rescuing other people. Now that they are caught in the crossfire, there is hardly any means of getting across to them, and the people they are there to help are also incapacitated in calling for help, in terms of getting even basic things as internet to get information out and say we need help in so place and so on. So there is no further information at the moment, but we are still following and hoping they will be rescued.
Right, Ayanuga, thanks very much then for joining me with all that latest information. And viewers, let's now proceed to cover some more details coming in as far as the Epstein files are concerned. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary are calling for their congressional testimony on ties to convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein to be held publicly to prevent Republicans from politicizing the issue. Both Clintons had been ordered to give closed-door depositions before the House of Representatives Oversight Committee, which is investigating the deceased financier's connections to powerful figures and how information about his crimes was handled. Democrats say the probe is being weaponized to attack political opponents of President Donald Trump, himself a longtime Epstein associate who has not been called to testify rather than to conduct legitimate oversight. House Republicans had previously threatened a contempt vote if the Democratic power couple did not show up to testify, which they have since agreed to do. But holding the deposition behind closed doors, Bill Clinton said Friday, would be akin to being tried at a kangaroo court. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, said the couple had already told the Republican-led Oversight Committee what they know. According to this, she said that if they want a fight, it should be in public. The Justice Department last week released the latest cache of Epstein files, more than 3 million documents, photos and videos related to its investigation into Epstein, who died from what was determined to be a suicide while in custody in 2019. Bill Clinton features regularly in the files, but no evidence has come to light implicating either Clinton in criminal activity. And now on to some sports news. Italians are filled with excitement as the 2026 Winter Olympics have officially begun with a grand opening ceremony. The 3.5-hour ceremony unfolded through music, dance and familiar winter game symbols, introducing athletes from across the world alongside Italian performers and the event's mascots. One of the most memorable moments came when the Olympic flame was lit simultaneously in two cities, Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo. As the opening ceremony comes to an end, attention now turns to the competitions as medal events begin across multiple venues. Let's hear from the audience what they are expecting this year.
Everything, it light up and it's made just a magic work. I'm so proud of my nation, I'm so proud of Italy, and I just hope that every athlete can do their best and bring our nation to victory once again. I'm so happy and I wish that everybody has so much fun. I hug everybody and I hope that you guys enjoy the Olympics.
Saranno 10 giorni emozionantissimi in cui si vivrà una città, non so come dire, magica, ecco.
And viewers, that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for all international news and updates.